Hi, I'm Margaret and welcome to Garden School. Today I'm up at the pea patch and I wanted to talk about common weeds in our vegetable garden. Well, I have done a real good job, the best I can, continuing to pull out the weeds that I notice in my pea patch, but there are a couple of patches here that haven't been started yet and there are plenty of weeds. So I wanted to look at some of the common ones here and to explain maybe why we want to be aggressive on working with those to get them out of our garden. Okay, let's take a look. So here we have a little bed that has plenty of work to do in it, but you know, it's not going to be that tough. But let's just talk about some of the different weeds that we're noticing. We can see some grass back there, some crabgrass. That's going to need a little bit of work to get out because it's got stolons that run under the ground, and when you break them, that doesn't do very much good. You want to get the whole thing out there. But I wanted to look at one common one right here, this shotweed. At least that's what I call it. You can see it's got this basal rosette and then this long elongated stem with tiny white flowers and then these purple seed capsules. Well, when those seed capsules get touched or bumped, they spread, they just shoot the seeds out. And that's why we want to be really aggressive on this. Take the whole thing out. And we want to do that before we see those things actually going to seed. So here's another one that's similar to that shotweed. This is called bitter cress, and it also has a basal rosette. This is a very tiny rosette of leaves down at the base, and then an elongated stem, tiny white flowers, and the seed capsules are up at the top here. And those will also just shoot out the seeds. This also we want to take down the whole thing, pull the whole thing out, and dispose of it. Here's another one. This is chickweed, and it's a little more succulent. It's more prostrate along the ground, has tiny white flowers. They're kind of cute, and the stems are pretty succulent. This one we want to pull out too, so we're just going to find the base of the plant, pull the whole thing out, and this is going to take a little bit more work. I'll have to work on that a little bit more. And chickweed, if you like, you can actually put this into your salad. It's a very nice wild green to add to your salad. Just make sure you're getting it from a location that hasn't been sprayed or contaminated in any other way. But chickweed, we really don't want that in our garden. So just when you were starting to think that all of the garden weeds have white flowers, we come upon this one. It's really kind of cute. It's got square stems, so it's in the mint family, and it's called red dead nettle. It's a pretty one, but you know what? It really isn't going to work in our garden. These weeds are, the problem with these kinds of weeds is that they will take nutrients from our vegetables or our flowers as we're trying to grow them, and they can also shade out the growing seedlings of the desirable things. So that's why we're going to just take care of those. Now here is one that has a little bit of yellow. This is common groundsel. At least now I'm using the common names, not the botanic names for these. And as you know, or you will learn, that weeds, the names for them can change depending on who you talk to, at least the common names. So this one I want to take out too. And you notice these flowers, they're called rayless flowers. It's very interesting, and there's a little bit of black marking on it. We're gonna just take that whole thing out too. We want to get the root and everything. Now, if we don't, well, that will help. We won't get seeds developing, but we will still have that plant growing and causing its trouble where we don't want it to be. Goodbye. Now I'm looking in another bed here at the pea patch at this common groundsel. That's the one with these little bractless or rayless flowers, and the little black markings there on them. This one's already going to seed. You see that fluff there? Well, that's going to cause some problems for this gardener at some point, probably. Well, I'll let them deal with it. I've got plenty of my own. Well, this is one we probably all know, the wonderful little dandelion. This one looks like it's already bloomed and gone to seed, so this gardener's going to have some work to do. Now when you're trying to get out a dandelion, you're going to need a little tool to get that root down to get the whole root. It can go quite deep. You'll need a tool or another kind of, a trowel or another kind of little tool to get that out. So what are some of the things you can do to prevent all these weeds coming up in your vegetable patch or in your flower beds? Well, I would say persistence is really probably the key. But as you can see right here, some gardeners will even cover their plot during the winter time with black plastic. Now that does several things. It will protect the soil. It will prevent germination of seeds that are already in the soil. And then it also helps to solarize. So on a nice sunny day when we get that and it hits that black plastic, it can get quite warm underneath, and that can cause any seeds that would be there that want to germinate to be not viable anymore. So that's one thing you can do. That, along with the persistence of just identifying weeds and going after them when you see them before they can go to seed, those things will really help. And they are really an organic and a pretty non-invasive method for our gardening. So you may have heard of IPM, which is Integrated Pest Management, and that is the practice of using different practices to address certain pests, starting with the least invasive practice first. Well, I would like to talk about integrated weed management, which is very similar. So when you see that shot weed starting to go to seed, pull it out right away, even if you don't have your gloves on. At least that's my practice. And then if it's worse, then you have to use a tool. And then maybe you need to think about mulching over winter, covering with black plastic, or really being aggressive in a certain area. The last resort would be to use an herbicide. I'm just not going to do that. So you decide what you want to do. It's probably better if you can use the least invasive method first. Well, you can see here at the pea patch that our pathways have lots of dandelions. The way we are going to take care of this is by weed eating. That's what we've decided to do. And we will weed eat before these things can go to seed, so that we have fewer little dandelions coming up. That's going to be our practice here. Well, they sure are pretty right now, but I guess we'll enjoy them until the people with the weed eaters come. So in your own environment, in your own gardening area, take a look at the weeds that you're finding that are common and learn to identify them, learn how to deal with them, learn when to get them out, and you might want to consider where you're going to put those weeds. I don't want to put them in my composting area because I'm not sure that my heat would get high enough to kill any weed seeds. So then if I was going to use that compost, I might just be planting weed seeds. Well, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to use my yard waste bin. You might have another idea. If you've got chickens, well, many of these weeds the chickens would probably love. So that's another thing to think about. Well, we talked about some of those weeds. Learn your weeds, learn how to deal with your weeds, and have fun in your garden. There's always more to learn in the garden. Bye-bye.